Throughout winter, you may hear the term sea effect snow quite often, especially when we're talking about the heavy snow totals you see across much of Hokkaido, extending down through northern Honshu and even into Kyushu along the Sea of Japan coastline. Well, in today's episode of Westpac Weather 101, we're going to be breaking down what sea effect snow really is and what causes it out here. Now, despite its name, sea effect snow is not salty. I actually get that question quite often out here. As we all know, when water does evaporate from the ocean, it leaves the salt behind. That's why when there's a typhoon, you don't taste salt in it. I just want to clear that up. That's actually one of the most common questions I get when we're talking about sea effect snow. So where does its name come from? Well, it actually gets its name from the Sea of Japan, or just sea effect snow, much like lake effect snow if we're talking about North America. Now, throughout winter, we often get winds that come out of the northwest, out of Siberia, carrying with it cold, dry air, and that moves over the relatively warm waters of the Sea of Japan. Specifically, the Tsugaru Current, which runs through this region, often is quite warm. Check out actually our ocean currents Westpac Weather 101 update. I'll put it here on the screen, and you can click there and check out all the different types of ocean currents that really dominate the Western Pacific. So when the air is below freezing and there is a difference between the air mass and the ocean surface temperatures at about 13 degrees Celsius, you can start to get those ingredients in place for sea effect snow. A few other factors are actually needed in place as well. You need a deep Arctic air mass, which we do see come out of Siberia. Also, little directional vertical wind shear. And what I mean by that is that if you have winds coming basically from one level, from east to west, but they're coming from north to south just above that, especially in the lower levels, you get a lot of directional wind shear. Sea effect snow clouds do not like this. They want all of the winds to basically go in the same direction, especially in the lower levels, or else it's just going to be tearing it apart. Now, one thing that makes Japan so special is that you have the sea effect snow, but you also have the Japanese Alps, or the mountains here that cause upslope or orographic lifting out here. And when that comes into play, this type of lifting really just occurs when the Lanner Mountains, in this case, forces the air to move to a higher elevation. Now, several thermodynamic variables change when air rises, and the temperature of the air cools as it's lifted, and thus more condensation occurs. The term I often use when I'm talking about this, instead of all those big words, especially in the Western Pacific weather updates, is basically the mountains squeezing out the moisture like a sponge. And that's exactly what happens. So what you see all along the Japanese Alps is some very high snow totals. So easily in a day, you may see some areas with the snow totals over 50 centimeters, and actually across parts of Hokuriku, by the end of the season, once we start getting into late February, early March, snow totals could pile up well over 300, maybe even 400 centimeters. That's well over 7 feet for those of you using the imperial system. And that's actually why, if you are a skier, you may know about Japan's snowfall. It's some of the deepest powder in the world. But if you are a Tokyo resident, on the other hand, and you don't venture out to the mountains quite often, or you don't hear about it in the news, you may think, well, where's all this snow? One thing I do want to mention is that when all that moisture gets squeezed out like a sponge that we're talking about, coming across the Sea of Japan and hitting the mountains, it all stops right there. And then once that winds start to carry back down the eastern slopes of the Japanese Alps, it dries out. Now, that is not always the case. Sometimes we get what we call southern coast lows. And you can even check out my video I made specifically on southern coast lows after the winter of 2014, where several of them moved over Tokyo and brought some record-breaking snowfall. Now, I do also want to note one more thing, specifically for the Hokuriku region, which is just west of Tokyo. Now, these have some very high mountains here, so of course that does contribute to the snowfall, but there's a few other factors. Now, take a look at this graphic I have here, where basically extending out of North Korea, you have some mountain chains up there. Now, when the winds start to blow over these mountains, it goes around, it splits, and then it combines on the other side, and then it flows across often to the Hokuriku region. Another thing is that the distance between North Korea and Hokuriku is the greatest distance across the Sea of Japan. So this area often sees the most snowfall. I guess in the end, if you do like snowfall and you want to go somewhere where there is a lot of it, probably try to bet on northwestern portions of Honshu or western Hokkaido. And of course, we have very famous ice festivals there in Sapporo during the month of February. Niseko, one of the most famous ski resorts in the world, is located in western Hokkaido. And also we have numerous other ones extending down along the Japan coastline, including Nagano, where the 1996 Olympics were even held. But that is all for me today, everyone. I am doing this update today using the green screen for the first time. So let me know what you think about it. I know it's a little bit rough on the edges, but it's definitely something new, and we're going to try to do this with more of our updates here at Western Pacific Weather. So as always, stay safe out there, and thanks again for watching.